mean, obviously, as of this recording, the game against Montreal is tomorrow night. James, the thing about this, you look at even Dom Luszczyszyn's predictions, right? Which he kind of does a little bit of does that for every playoff series. The Leafs have according to him, an over 80% chance of winning this series, and in fact, their highest percentage is somewhere between Game 5 and Game 6, is what Dom's predictions model says. But as Leaf fans, the higher that percentage gets, the more nervous we get, because the Leafs have this uncanny, incredible ability to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. And I wondered, when you watch this team, is it a whole lot different than last year's team? And if so, why should we be confident about it?
Well, I will answer that. Let me throw this at you. When's the last time in a playoff series the Leafs have been favored this heavily against their opponent?
Oh, that's a good question.
Couldn't
tell you. No idea.
It's not an easy one. You think so? Who did they? That was Ottawa in the first round, right?
Ottawa was not heavily. Not heavily.
I mean, that first year with Cujo, it was Philly, and then Philly was favored, and then I forget who with the second round. Pittsburgh was favored, and then Buffalo was favored.
You'd honestly have to go back to 93 or 94.
I think so.
Being a really heavy favorite is a different meatball, right? Like, the Leafs haven't been there. Like, everyone's talking about, the Leafs are choked in the playoffs, can't win in the first round, whatever. I mean, for the longest time when I covered this team, they didn't even make the first round. They didn't make the playoffs. And then when they did, they had no business winning. Like 2013, Boston was a way better team than they were. Like that series shouldn't have even gone 7 games. But some of those games were ridiculous. Game 1 in that series was ridiculous. I remember writing a post game, like, this is going to be a short series. Like, I think they were outshot like 45-18 or something. And it was anyway.
It was bad.
So, and then, they 2017, they get Washington, heavy underdogs. 2018, Boston, they're still underdogs. 2019, it's closer, but they still weren't the favorite. I mean, they were the favorite, I guess, against Columbus last year. But even then, Columbus had the same number of points and the same number of games as the Leafs did, because the Leafs had such a disappointing year last year. And this is the first time since I've covered the team. I've covered the team for 14 years. This is the first time where they've been the favorite in a playoff series. So it's new territory, I think, for a lot of fans, especially younger fans. And I think that's where, the nerves are well placed, because fans haven't seen this team have a lot of success, especially in the playoffs. And the fan base isn't used to the team being in this position. But to answer your question going way back to the beginning, yes, this is different. This team is different. This team is better. This is the best Leafs team we've seen in a long, long time. They've earned that favorite spot. They've earned that. I mean, I think they were 18, 19 points ahead of Montreal during the regular season, or in a shortened season. You extrapolate that over 82 games, they would have been, 30, 35, 38 points ahead of them over 82 games. So, I do think that this is real. I do think they should win this series, but you guys, I mean, in the NHL, there's always, I don't know if there's such thing as an 82% favorite in a playoff series in the NHL. I don't know if that's, I don't know if that's, I know I believe in Dom's model and everything, and I do think the Leafs are going to win the series, but that seems like pretty steep odds for me.
Well, it's just, for me, like, if we get out like some sort of time machine and we play the series 100 times, they're going to win it 82 times. And I just don't believe that.
What universe are we in now, Steve? Are we in one of the 82 or are we in one of the 18, right?
This is, we got to ask the Marvel universe. We'll find out what the Leafs end game is, you see, because it's very good.
Who's Thanos in this equation? I don't.
Oh, God. I think it's the entire Montreal Canadiens fan base. If the Leafs lose, man, it's gonna be ugly on hockey Twitter. That's for sure.
Yes, I think I can already tell it's gonna be ugly on hockey Twitter. Like, it's ugly now. Some of the stuff I'm getting is just, and I'm getting like stuff from Leafs fans too. Like, people are losing it already, and the games haven't even started. If the Leafs lose game 1, it's going to be a very long 48 hours until game 2. I know that.
So I imagine. Oh, sorry, Jesse, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the questions we had last show was the 3-4 game, because they're back-to-back. Yep. Is that where Anderson gets his playoff start?
I think if he gets one, then yeah. I don't think it's a given that, I think if you're the Leafs and you're up 2-1 or you're up 3-0 in the series and Campbell's been fantastic, and if you win that 4th game, you get a break, I might just put Campbell out there again for the back-to-back. I mean, why mess with something, right? Like, why not just close it out? Although, I mean, I guess then if you lose the game, then goalies can play the back-to-back. Like, I know we've moved away from that, and I know statistically there's slightly better performance for goalies not playing the back-to-back, but it's not unheard of, especially in the playoffs, for goaltenders to play the back-to-back. Like, one of those Boston series was a back-to-back Game 6 and Game 7. Mm-hmm. I think it was it was 4-1 game. That was a back-to-back, right? I'm pretty sure Game 7 they had to fly there. I remember covering it and just like doing it on like no sleep and traveling, and there was I think Game 6 and Game 7 were back-to-back, and I think maybe in multiple of those Leafs Boston series that was the case. And the same goalie played for both teams in both those games, so it's not out of the. I think it's going to depend on the comfort level with Frederik Andersen and where the series is at. And I think you just evaluate that when you get to Game 3 and Game 4. And the one thing that Jonas brought up the other day was maybe you play Andersen in Game 3. You know, maybe you feel like that's the game you put him in. If you've won the first two and you feel pretty comfortable, like you got the series in hand, then maybe that makes sense to do that. But I don't
right. 2013, by the way, back to back.
Yeah, I remember traveling in it. It was a nightmare. Yeah.
Do you have to play him?
No, I don't. That's what I'm saying. That was my whole spiel. Was like, most series where there's a back-to-back, the starter plays both the games. It's
okay. Because I just wasn't blown. Like the Marley's performance, the three of them that he had weren't great. I don't think he was particularly great when he came back for the Leafs. If you win the first two games, to me, it's like, oh man, keep Jack in. What are we messing with? What are we messing this for? And does Fred Anderson, if Jack Campbell stays healthy, and I mean, we've seen. What happened to Washington when you hope your goaltender stays healthy. Their goalie tries to make one save, makes an awkward move, and now all of a sudden Craig Anderson's in net. I'm not a Frederik Andersen in the playoffs believer. There, I said it. And the reason I say that is because I've seen him in when he is fully healthy play in the playoffs, and there's been 6-0 games. And I am concerned about that. And so here he is with is it a knee or a hip that's really bugging him?
His knee. Yeah.
His knee.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be healthy.
Well, I mean, he had like 2 months to get it better. Like I think he took like more than enough time to recover from the injury that he had. So he should be 100%, but this is one of those ones where it's like it's between the years for him right now. And like I don't know where he's at. With that, I don't think his confidence level is not very high. He struggled. I mean, like, let's face it, he struggled going back to a lot of last season too, right? I mean, he had injuries last year. He was really, really up and down. I don't think he's the same goaltender that he was in probably years 2 and 3 were probably his best in Toronto, right? He's not in the same place. And I don't know if it's because he doesn't have a contract or because he's getting pushed by Jack Campbell, which he wasn't getting pushed by another goalie in those previous years. He was clearly the number one, and the coaching staff made a point to build him up as the number one. That wasn't the case coming into this year. You talk to people in the Leafs organization, and there was a lot of people talking about Jack Campbell and how they believed in him and how they thought potentially he could really battle for the starting job. And that's the way that it's played out. So I'm not a believer in Frederik Andersen at this point either. I think in the organization there are doubters, and it wouldn't shock me if he actually doesn't play in this series.
So I'm a Jack Campbell believer now. But throughout the course of the season, people were talking about the idea of him becoming the starter. And I over and over again said, well, that's ridiculous. He's never done it. And he's in his late 20s now. Like, I know goalies take a little while to develop. What did they see in this guy that let them think he could do something that would frankly be irregular based on most NHL careers?
Well, the interesting thing is, and I did a deep dive on Jack Campbell earlier this year too, where I kind of like spent 6 weeks just calling everyone on earth that knew Jack Campbell and talking to people in his past. And there's a lot of people that believe in Jack Campbell. There's a lot of people that have seen him be a very, very good goalie for a long period of time. And it was really only when he was 20 years old and he was with the Dallas Stars organization and he was in the AHL that he really kind of struggled and fell off the map. Other than that, like, I don't know, 4-season stretch maybe where he kind of lost his game, he's been a pretty good goalie. When he's played in the AHL, he's been pretty good. When he's been healthy, he's been pretty good. He's also battled a lot of injuries, which I don't think has been talked about a ton. I know it's been talked about with the injuries he's had with the Leafs, but even before he came to the Leafs, he had some injuries. That would probably be my biggest concern with him being your number one and trying to start him every game in the playoffs is that his health has been a concern if you go back over the years. And you don't want to get in a situation where he breaks down and then you have no choice but to play Anderson all your games, right? So, that would be probably why I would look at start Anderson in the back-to-back is you want to preserve Campbell. But you look at what he did going back to when he was with the U.S. program, what he did internationally when he was really, really young. You look at what he did when he was in the LA Kings organization. He was the starter with the Ontario Reign in the AHL. He was then the starter with the LA Kings a couple of years later when Jonathan Quick got hurt. He played 31 games. He had crazy numbers. I don't know if you have it in front of you. He had
we've talked about that before, but he had great numbers with a really bad team that year.
Yes. And much better numbers than Jonathan Quick. So there are, and his save percentage as an NHL goalie playing in the NHL, I know he hasn't played a lot of games. It's very, very good. So those are the kind of indicators I look for in a goalie, is that even if they've only played 50, or I think he's at 88 games played or something like that in the NHL, all you can do is look at his body of work and judge off that. And I would say that Jack Campbell's body of work going back to 2016 is really, really good. And it indicates that he potentially is a starting goalie.
He had a 928, by the way, in 31 games with now a losing record, but I don't think the Kings could score that season.
Yeah, that team was terrible. But you talk to people around the team at that point, they said, we could see it, that he was going to be a starter. And the only reason that LA traded Jack Campbell is they couldn't trade Jonathan Quick. They tried, they couldn't trade him. And they had Cal Peterson, who is younger than Jack Campbell and who they think is going to be just as good. It wasn't that they didn't believe in Jack Campbell. So it's a really, really smart scouting eye by the Leafs to see this guy who probably shouldn't have been on the trade block and was because a team had three goalies, and identifying him as someone who could potentially be a starting goalie. I mean, Jack Campbell's going to be the Leafs starter next year, and he's making $1.6 million. That puts him in a really good position cap-wise next season.
So that's been an interesting thing for me, is we're always so focused on the next season. It's been much less so this season, and I've been doing my best to just sort of put those blinders on. But you really do think he's going to be the starter next year, eh? They're not going to go out and try to get someone else?
Well, I think they're going to add somebody. Yeah, I look at their cap situation. I think they're going to try and bring Zach Hyman back. His number's obviously going to go up from 225. That eats into some of your cap space. I think what you end up doing, Steve, is you end up spending some of the money that Anderson's making this year, some of that $5 million, in other places on the roster. They're probably going to need another center. I mean, unless maybe they bring Riley Nash back, but I doubt that that's the
Jack Eichel.
I think you can't.
There's your shutdown guy.
I've tried making the math work on that. Is pretty tough. Like, I don't know where you're going to find the 10 million, but maybe
half.
Basically, I'm being too long-winded with this. They're going to have $5 million from Anderson that's freed up. I don't think the goalie that they bring in to play with Jack Campbell is going to be making $5 million. It's going to be like a $2 or a $3 million guy. There's going to be a tandem, so it's not like it's going to be just Campbell without any kind of a fail-safe. But they're also not going to go out and spend another $5 million on a number one goalie to play instead of Jack Campbell.
How about Big Save Dave?
I mean, we haven't seen a lot of the big saves, so
just Dave.
No save Dave for the Leafs.
Ooh, James. Obviously, I mean, we got to because we have limited time with you. I know we got about 15 minutes here remaining. We've got to talk to you about. I mean, the way the Leafs play defensively, and then I want us to get into the Habs. So quickly on what you've seen. The Leafs team defensive play, and I'm not just talking about the defensemen and the talent back there, which is deeper than it's ever been. How do you think this team has changed the way it's played defensively to fit the system that Sheldon Keefe wants to play? Do you think he's been successful in getting them to be maybe a little bit more like Tampa?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean,
and how? I guess how is probably the better question.
Sheldon Keefe spent the whole training camp in January trying to change the mindset of his team. I don't know if I want to call it to play safer, but to make better decisions when the puck's in the offensive zone and to not be so aggressive on the forecheck that you leave yourself open coming back the other way. And if you look at some of the advanced stats that Sportlogic and some of the other companies put out, the Leafs have made huge gains in things like not allowing odd man rushes, in preventing uncontested shots from the slot, all of those kinds of things that were problematic for them in previous years. They've been able to cut those down. Now, the Leafs aren't the best defensive team in the league, but they've gone from, I would say last year they were probably middle of the pack, lower middle of the pack. Like they were probably 18th, 19th in terms of their defensive ability to cut down the quality of chances against. And this year they're up right into that kind of like 8th, 9th, 10th group in the league. And that's really been the system change from Sheldon Keefe, and it's been the personnel change that you've talked about. It's been bringing in TJ Brody. It's been, frankly, moving out some players that don't really have as good defensive acumen, getting rid of the Tyson Barrie, Kasperi Kapanen, to some extent Andreas Johnsson, changing the look of both the blue line, get Bogosian in there, who I think's played really well and has been kind of a really safe option for them on the third pair. They upgraded both the roster and they upgraded kind of the hockey IQ of their players, and they really went to Tavares and Marner and Nylander and said, let's make the right decision. When the puck's in a contested area, let's put ourselves in a position where we're not going to be giving up an odd man rush the other way if it doesn't go our way. We know that you're really skilled. We know that you're probably going to be able to win that puck back. But what happens if you don't? And what are different ways that we can approach that situation? That's really what Sheldon Keefe worked on with his team.
What has this season been like for you? Like, not being able to go to any games for the first time in, I assume, a decade and a half.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. I went, I haven't even been going to practice because, there's mostly only been one person covering practice per outlet. It's been very strange. And as everyone knows, I'm sure there's lots of people listening. It's been tough as a parent. I got 2 kids, and there have been times where the schools have been closed, and, my son's in kindergarten. There have been times when the daycares haven't been open. I've got a 2-year-old. Like, to have a kindergartner and a 2-year-old running around while you're trying to cover things on Zoom calls, and it's been a challenge. I know it's been a challenge for people, all over the world, and my family's all really far away. My family all lives in Western Canada. I haven't seen I haven't seen my dad in almost 2 years. My kids haven't seen their grandfather in almost 2 years. Like, it's been crazy, and it's been a challenge for us in the media too, because the way that we do our job. I mean, most of the time when I'm going to a game or I'm going to practice, it's not to watch necessarily what happens on the ice, because now with TV and replays and PVRs and everything, you can see it pretty well. Really what you miss is, I like going in that dressing room and you sit next to a guy and you have a conversation and you learn something. And we don't have that right now. So, we've had to really change the way that we do our job. And, telling a story like the Austin Matthews story about how he shoots the puck, it's been a lot more challenging than it would in a normal year, because in a normal year, you could go talk to every single guy in the dressing room about what they're doing and all those kinds of things. So it's, that's kind of like a long answer, but I'm hopeful that this will be a year unlike any other, and we can move towards normalcy here really soon.
Well, it's looking like we are. The premier in Quebec just today had fully announced, or was it yesterday, announced that should there be a game 6, it would be in Montreal, and they'd allow, I think it was it 2,500 or 5,000 fans in?
2,500.
Yeah.
Which is, that would be a first in Canada in over 16, 17 months. So that's a huge deal. Hopefully it doesn't get that far, and the Leafs have already got them wrapped up by then. But it's still nice to be able to even mention it and talk about it. James, I do want to get to Montreal here for the last 10 minutes. If they are going to threaten the Leafs, where is the biggest threat coming from? What are the Leafs looking at right now in their video room to say, this is how we got to beat them? Otherwise, they might surprise us.
Well, Montreal does have some talent. I mean, Toffoli had a great year. Gallagher is going to be back and healthy, and he's a great player. Deneau's the Leafs Montreal is a pretty good 5-on-5 team. They've been a good 5-on-5 team for years. So I think the fear, if you're the Leafs organization or the Leafs fan base, is that this series looks like the one against Columbus, where, Columbus was the lesser skilled team, but they found a way to neutralize the Leafs' weapons. They found a way to get good goaltending. They found a way to win the series. And that's what Montreal, if I'm Montreal, I'm going back and I'm watching that Leafs Columbus series, and I'm looking at all the ways that Columbus neutralized Toronto, and I'm trying to duplicate that. And I don't know, Montreal's probably going to be outpossessed in the series. They're probably going to give up more chances. They're probably going to be outshot. They're going to have to try and find a way to keep the games close. I think they're probably going to want to have a lot of the games be 2-1 and come down to bounces and things like that. And then you just hope that it's a long series. It's a war of attrition. I know Montreal's going to come out and try and be as physical as they possibly can. They're going to try and hang in there and make things interesting. And they've got the personnel where they might be able to do that. They might be able to plant the seed of doubt in the Leafs' minds and make some of their star players think back to that Columbus series where they just couldn't buy a goal.
What do you expect from Carey Price? We saw his meltdown at practice today where he broke the stick, and we saw him in the AHL on, Monday, warming up. So what do you expect from him from this series?
It's really funny. I know this is one of the things I've seen on hockey Twitter the last whatever 5 days, you get like Leafs fans saying like, why are people talking about Carey Price being able to steal this series? And then you talk to people in Montreal, like Arpin Basu, who covers Montreal for us at The Athletic, and he says, well, like, we think that Carey Price might steal a series because he's done that before. Like, they watched Montreal go into that series against Pittsburgh last year. No one picked Montreal in that series. No one. They were probably as much of they finished 24th in the standings.
Yeah.
And they only made the playoffs or the play-in series because of the goofy format and the shortened season. Like, they shouldn't have even been there. And if you look at the numbers, I mean, Carey Price last year, I think he had a .931 save percentage in the playoffs last year. 936. There's a pattern there too. If you look at it, Carey Price has had a number of seasons where he's had a poor regular season, and I'll be the first one to say that he's had a lot of poor regular seasons lately. And then all of a sudden in the playoffs, he flips a switch and he's like Carey Price of 5 or 6 years ago. So that's why people in Montreal and media in Montreal are talking about him that way, because they know that he has that ability. Mm-hmm. You ask, what am I expecting from him? I don't know. I don't know what he's going to do. I mean, like, it's like trying to predict I don't know what Jack Campbell's going to do in this series. I mean, I think with goalies, you're really, really guessing. And the number of guesses you could make with Carey Price that makes sense and are a logical argument, there's a very, very wide range there.
He's had a better save percentage in the playoffs than the regular season in each of his last 2 playoff appearances. He had a 936 versus a 909 last year. And in 2017, he had a 933 over a 923. Playoff Price, man. It could be a thing. I don't know why people listen in the regular season. Yes, like you said, those are very mediocre numbers, but it's playoff Price, man. They don't pay him for the regular season.
Think about this, guys. Like, Columbus's goalies last year in the regular season didn't have otherworldly numbers. Like, it was Korpisalo that frustrated and drove the Leafs crazy in that play-in series, right? Like, he didn't have great numbers. No one was coming to that series and being like, "Oh, Korpisalo is going to shut down the Leafs, and I'm worried about him." But who knows, right? Like, you go into a 5-game series. That series with Columbus, the scoring, if you take out the empty net goals, it was 10-9. Like, that's how many goals were in 5 games. Like, if I'm Montreal, that's what I try and do here is have a series that's, you're averaging 3 goals a game. Like, that's where you want to be if you're them. So I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. I'm not saying they're going to be able to do that. I'm just saying the concern or the strategy from Montreal, that's what it should be. Now, Toronto's got so much firepower, they're probably going to be able to make it so that doesn't happen. That's going to be the battle here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's what you hope for, right? Is that's the overwhelming skill, and then the fact that the bottom 2 lines are built a lot differently than they have been in years past. Now, James, I think that you did mention Montreal's been a good team on 5-on-5 for a long time. If the Leafs are going to capitalize, obviously special teams are going to have to be a part of it. The Leafs power play has struggled. What about Montreal's special team are struggling?
I mean, they don't have the top end talent that the Leafs do. They don't have an Austin Matthews. If you look at Dom's preview that he had on our site yesterday, I mean, it's very, very clear that the talent advantage that the Leafs have in the top 6 and really like their top, 4 or 5 forwards it's glaring. It's glaring. Like, I believe, using Dom's statistics that Zach Hyman waits out as pretty well close to the Montreal's best forward on the team. So, like, if you don't have that high-end skill, it impacts your power play. So the Leafs have to be feeling pretty good. I think their penalty kill has been decent of late.
It's recovered.
Their personnel on the penalty kill is good. Once you get Riley Nash is a very good penalty killer. Foligno is a really good penalty killer. Bogosian looks like he's going to be healthy for this series. The Leafs should be pretty good on the penalty kill. Montreal's not the greatest power play team, And I mean, even penalty kill, Montreal's penalty kill is not going to scare anybody, but the fact of the matter is the Leafs power play has been at 8% for 30 games. Like, the Leafs power play is not, I don't think the Leafs can be counting on that to win them this series.
And do you think, lastly here, as we wrap up, do you think the Leafs are happy with the way Foligno has worked out, given what they gave up to get him?
So far, but I mean, everyone in the organization that you talk to, they all say like, none of this matters unless they win in the playoffs. They know that. Everyone in the organization realizes that. They realize the pressure that's on them. So the success or failure of the Foligno trade is like not with, how many games has he even played? 5? Like, he was hurt and like he's looked good. Like, and he's fit in well with the skill players and he's a guy whose personality has fit in extremely well. And I know the players all speak super highly of him. None of that matters. They give up a first round pick and 2 fourth round picks to get him. to make the cap work and everything. That's a lot. And it's too much if you lose in the first round. Part of why they got a guy like that is to play in a series like this against Montreal, where the other team's going to try and be physical and to grind some goals into the net. So that's what he's here to do.